Madam Secretary, would you call the roll, please?
Sure. Dr. Koji is running late. Ms. Hancock?
Here.
Ms. Howard?
Here.
Dr. Hudson?
Here.
Dr. Levin?
Here. Have we established a quorum?
Yes, we have.
Is there a motion to approve tonight's agenda with just some updated items to 6.10? It's no change in substance of the items, it's just change of some dates to accommodate scheduling. Is there a motion to approve the agenda with the adjustments to item 6.10?
So moved.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Are there any questions from the board? Call the roll, please.
Ms. Hancock?
Yes.
Ms. Howard?
Yes.
Dr. Hudson?
Yes.
Dr. Levin?
Yes. If everyone would please stand after Shively, would you lead us in the pledge?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
First item on our agenda is a special recognition, and if Heather Anderson would like to come forward. I think should she stand here? Or is it going to be the best place for her to hear? Okay.
Is this good? Yeah, that's good. So we would like to recognize Raven Butler. Come on down. Raven has donated over $3,000 to the program that serves our students experiencing homelessness. This is the inaugural award, and I hope we'll be able to give more throughout the years because of your example.
Thank you.
And there's a little gift. So thank you. Did you have any words you want to say about your program, or?
That was really good.
Oh, tell us how you got started in
Yeah, can you tell us what program it was you started?
So it's called Smart Choice Recycling, and it takes...
Do you mind taking your mask down? I think they'll hear on you on the microphone better.
It's called Smart Choice Recycling, and it takes used toner cartridges, and there's a couple different programs that we use to recycle those, and all the money goes to the homeless program here in the city schools. But it started with my mom and my dad have their own medical office, and she kind of brought the idea to me, and it just kind of sparked from there.
And thank you. Thank you so
Of
much.
course.
And how much have you donated to date, Raven?
I don't know the exact number. I'd have to look.
It's well over 3,000.
It's over 3,000.
Well over $3,000. That's wonderful. Congratulations and thank you very much. Next item on our agenda is item 4.1, Student Achievement. Will Black, Assistant Superintendent.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
All right. Tonight, I want to outline in a little bit more detail our plan for overcoming learning loss due to the pandemic and due to COVID. That's going to be a huge task that actually is probably going to take multiple years to accomplish, but we have been busy planning the big picture part of it with teacher input and with the research from some experts. So I want to share that. Some of this I've shared before, but I want to provide again a little bit more detail. So the question we want to answer is, what is the most effective approach for overcoming COVID learning loss? We've dealt with our teachers regularly focus on closing achievement gaps in any given year. But this year, the learning gaps are, the scale of the learning gaps is greatly increased by COVID. And so there's a lot more complexity in terms of which objectives kids have learned and which ones maybe they did not learn. And a lot of that complexity is due to the fact that in the spring, we really didn't have any live instruction due to not having the technology we needed. And then in the late fall and winter, we went completely digital. And, every time we changed learning platforms, or, even in the beginning, we had kids who had no technology, so they had no access in the very beginning as virtual students. All of these were roadblocks that create, more complicated set of learning gaps. And so in order to tackle this, we have partnered with TNTP, which is a consulting group. It's actually a nonprofit. They specialize in under-resourced communities around the country, those are big cities, rural, but where there is some complexity in the educational landscape. And they've been very helpful in terms of sharing some research. I shared with you some information about their learning acceleration model. They have a great vision for how do you go about prioritizing content when you're trying to catch kids up. Okay, so what their research shows is that just going back to the previous grade level and teaching everything that the kid missed is not the best way to go about catching a kid up. If they've gone through the grade or the previous grade level, even if they didn't learn everything, even if they learned half of it, even if they didn't learn anything, there is a less efficient and a more efficient way to get them to the current grade level of the standard. And the most efficient way to do that is to build a backwards map where you figure out, how do I get this child, if they have these gaps, how do I move them to grade level as quickly as possible? And the research shows the teachers that provide more grade level content and provide appropriate ladders to that content do better. Their students tend to do better. It's really a higher expectation, but it's done with very thoughtful planning in mind. So again, not just throwing them into the harder content, but building ladders to the harder content in a very efficient way. The second part of the plan is we want to provide really robust instructional coaching and support. And there's two ways that we've done that. One is through in-house, where we're hiring, creating some new positions to support teachers and principals with. And then the other is using a virtual coaching group that we've piloted some coaching with this year and got really good feedback from teachers on it. They love it. It's been very helpful overall. And in that group, I'll explain a little bit more in a minute about. And then the next step is, and I think there's no shortcut around this, is really having a much broader extended school day program and extended school year program, which we're starting on June 1st with a much larger summer school than we normally run. Finally, making sure teachers have the right resources in their classroom. All of this is made possible through Esser2 funds, and that's the Elementary and Secondary School Emergency Relief Act, the second one. The first one was part of the CARES Act. The second one actually came back in December, so under the previous administration, Esser2 actually came out. And that one is, it's a little bit, well, both are very broad, but they really, Esser2 is really emphasized direct services to kids. And so that really, we've been able to take that and to use it in a way to really ramp up these things. So the learning acceleration model, again, is from TNTP, is really emphasizes grade appropriate assignments and just-in-time learning of prerequisite objectives. So really thoughtful connections to prerequisites and teaching kids what they need to know from the previous grade level right before they start the grade level content. So it's, and some of that teaching can happen in RTI time. Teachers know about that, response to intervention. time. Some of it might be in the core time. It just depends on where the kids are. So trying to figure out where the kid is, what the gaps are, and then teaching to those gaps. Also, making sure that we're using best practices in instruction, deep engagement of kids where kids are doing the work. In other words, are we getting kids to actively participate, both in school and even outside of school, maybe doing assignments outside. And then the research is clear that teachers with high expectations get the most gains. So really making sure that we believe that kids can do it, and that we demonstrate those beliefs. The instructional coaching and support, as I said before, will be a combination of in-house support through district instructional coaching, school instructional coaching, and school administrative support. We have a teacher leader team that is going to participate in a retreat next week with TNTP. Already starting the week after school's out, we're going to start professional development with that group. And that teacher leader team, we're asking them to help us build models for what that learning acceleration looks like. So in third grade math, if you're going to build ladders to second grade in a way that really uses that model for learning acceleration, what's that look like in second grade math? And let's actually make examples over the summer. So the teacher leader team is going to be a big resource. And then last, we're going to leverage this really cool resource called Tentative, which is it's an ed tech company that provides virtual coaching. So they never come in person unless you really want them to, and then they will. But they hold their costs down by making their coaching virtual. And so this wouldn't be for every single teacher, but if there are needs, like for instance, new teachers, sometimes it really helps for a new teacher to have a coach that can just kind of help them get a leg up on what's going on. I know I had a coach in my first year, and it made all the difference for me. She was an amazing social studies teacher. I taught 9th grade social studies, and man, did she make me better, because I was able to come to her with questions, and then she was able to give me suggestions, and all of a sudden I got better, a lot better. And so this virtual coaching support, the district coaching, the school coaching, all of it will be aligned with the same framework, so that we're making sure that no matter who a teacher's talking to, it's the same basic process. And so all that, the introduction to all that, will happen next week. Now, there are a few teachers who want to participate in the team, or we're going to be bringing more people in as we go. There's only so many we can invite to this first thing. It's a virtual retreat, and so we're starting with a core group, and then we're going to expand out. It's going to be, I'm really excited about it. So I talked about the extended school day and extended school year. That'll be for K-12. It will be based on academic need. We've already done that in the summer program. We have based summer school invitations based on academic needs. If a student, either it could be grades or it could be other needs, maybe specific subject needs where they're really behind in a certain subject, but that summer school will be dedicated to that academic intervention. There will be some enrichment and some fun. It is summertime, we want to have some fun, but the focus is academic intervention. After school, our school board has passed a policy a few years ago where we can literally extend the school day if a kid needs it. Okay, so we can sit there and say, we want you to come to after school to receive these days every week, and we're going to take care of, it's free of charge, of course, and but that it's mandatory for a kid who is really behind, really struggling. And so we've used that some in the past few years. In the coming year, and coming 2 to 3 years, we can really leverage that to start making even greater gains. And so we want to scale those services. And then For the succeeding summers, we anticipate more summer school. So it won't just be this summer, it will be, probably definitely the next summer and maybe even the next summer that we have a larger summer school program. Last part is really just building in effective instructional tools. And the best example of this that I always use is some instructional technology tools that we've piloted. In fact, I was just talking to a teacher the other day, just last week, about the power of one of these tools, and that is Reading Plus. Another one is called Lexia. There are some math programs that are also effective. One we're trying out right now is Freckle. And Freckle Math ends up, we've seen some promising things with Freckle Math. We need to give it a little bit more time to see for sure if it's good. But these tools can help us personalize the practice, and they can help us get real-time feedback on where kids are. It can also help us by providing video lessons on certain skills. So if you have 5 different skills that need to be taught at once because you have all those different needs, you can leverage technology to help you do that. And so we really want to help teachers learn how to do that. We want to provide them the right tools, and we want to, now that we have every student with a computer, we truly can execute on that. So we also want to continue building assessment tools that work. What we want to eliminate is the need for teachers to have to find materials, spend a lot of time searching for materials and writing assessments if the assessment is already written. If there's a good version of that somewhere. Not that, we want teachers to be able to personalize it, but we don't want them to waste time. And so that's something we're really working on. And lastly, communication tools. We've spent actually we've done a lot of work on that already with our Kinvo app, which allows for us to communicate with anyone, even if they don't have a data plan. Kinvo is really cool. Unlike, it's similar to Remind, but it has some more functionality. And Kinvo, we're able to text parents and even students, older students, easily there. Not to mention Microsoft Teams, which continues to improve as a platform. So these are the big pieces of the plan. We're going to start with the retreat. We're going to be working over the summer building models. We're going to be working on quite a bit of professional development in August, although we've figured out, I think, how to not necessarily start as late as we were maybe thinking we'd have to. So I think we've gotten it down to the days we really need. And so after that, robust coaching and support through the year with some professional development days along the way. So, any questions? Yes, sir.
With this streaming thing that you guys are doing, will kids still be retained?
That's a good question. So we don't plan on retaining kids, really any more than usual, in the sense of it's just not recommended based on research. That's right. And so now there are some, there is the issue of parents, signing up to do another year. I'm forgetting what they're calling it, a redo year. But that's separate. In terms of us, actually retain a child like we would traditionally, it didn't make sense to do that. It wasn't going to be good for kids for us to do that on a large scale. There are still some cases, let's say in kindergarten or first grade, where schools are considering that, but it wouldn't be any more than usual. And a lot of times those decisions are made based on developmental issues as much as academic.
Yeah, I was asking because I'm not sure, especially at the lower grade levels, exactly that kindergarten, first grade, what skills did the kids miss, and are they being retained based on this COVID thing or development, which one?
And that's a good question. I mean, in fact, that's part of the advantage of partnering with this consultant team is that we're actually, they've offered to be thought partners with us on these things, so we can actually, that's already a question that we've asked. And so next week, we're going to get into that. So far, we have, again, like I said, we've not retained more than usual. But, moving forward, really the question is if a child has missed a significant amount of, if they've not mastered a significant number of kindergarten skills, how do we ensure that they're gonna master those skills in first grade and still, get caught up on grade level or close to grade level by the end of the year? And that's the tricky part that we've got to, make sure we can do.
As far as the backwards mapping is concerned, who's going to be a part of it? All teachers?
Yes, so we've discovered that the most effective way to roll out something is to have a teacher team along with administrators who learn about whatever the theory or approach is, and then have time to actually develop a model for it. So we're asking this group of teachers, and we're paying them over the summer to take their own curriculum and to use the approach of learning acceleration as TNTP describes it, to where they take their curriculum and they start making connections to prerequisites and deciding what are the priority objectives that a kid has to master from the previous grade level in order to excel on grade level. And actually, so that by the end of the year, you're actually mastering grade level content. After those models are built, then in August, and right now it's just August, there may be a couple of late July PDs, but in August, then everybody has a chance to take those models, and they're going to hear from teachers who are, their peers who are actually doing the work in the classroom are going to present these models to their fellow teachers, so that not only are they getting the theory, that they would be introduced to all the professional development, all the theory from TNTP, but then they also have these concrete models in hand. This is what it looks like.
Okay.
So yes.
Here's my next question. When kids come in class, school starts, is it an expectation that all grade levels will be doing the same thing from classroom to classroom with a timeline? The reason I'm asking that is because if teachers start struggling,
Right.
Are they going to be on a timeline to?
Yes, when I say they all need to share the same scope and sequence, okay, and same standards, which they already do. We even have common assessments at each grade level, okay, but the difference now would be, okay, these are your grade level standards. That doesn't change. You're still going to teach those standards. But what if you have students walking in with greater gaps than you've ever seen? Okay, that's the part we're going to work on together, so that we have a shared understanding of, okay, for example, if you're teaching, let's say you're teaching one-step word problems with adding and subtracting, okay, in second grade. That's toward the end of the year, toward the beginning, even the beginning and middle, they're starting to do that. But certainly what you want to know as a second grade teacher is what are the key first grade skills that have to be mastered to be able to do that word problem, right, or that type of word problem. And now what we want to do is to help them think through, how do you determine those priority objectives, and then how do you teach it? What does it look like? So that you're not wasting time. They know how to teach it, but how do you teach it efficiently? Now, newer teachers may not know how to teach everything, and so that's where they need extra coaching and support. But for the average teacher, they're going to be familiar with that. They just need a little bit of help thinking, how are we going to bridge these gaps that we really haven't seen on this scale? And so that's the work, and that's why we need some extra professional development days in the beginning of the year. Because if we do not give teachers the time to do that, it's not going to be effective. And keep in mind, the same teachers are teaching summer school. Okay, so what we need to make this doable for teachers. We need to support teachers with tools and and a lot of this, the great news here is a lot of this work has already been done. So there's some great sites that this consultant's already showed us that already list the priority content. One, if teachers are probably familiar with it, it's called Achieve the Core. It's a great website. I know our teachers use it. It lists out, okay, if you're in this situation, these are the priority objectives for first grade. These are the priority for second grade. And so what you do, our teachers are really going to spend time just matching. All right, here's this unit, what are the priority objectives we got to bridge? And that's a big time saver. So they're not, and that's the idea here, is that we want to spend the time in May really thinking through this with teachers so that by the time, with teacher leaders, so that by the time we get to August, it's efficient, we have a system that we can do, or we have a process that we can accomplish and actually get through in the time allotted.
Well, okay, sorry, this is in reference to Reverend Hudson's first question. Are there no circumstances at all where kids can be held back, just like ill health or something?
No, and that's why this is an extraordinary year, so we understand that kids, there are some students who just, they didn't have access to curriculum. There are cases, like let's say in kindergarten, where it might make sense, and usually that's a conversation with the parent. We're collaboratively saying, okay, I think it makes sense, it would help your child developmentally, because maybe they're not developed, they weren't really developmentally ready for kindergarten, and so another year helps them. Okay, but in terms of just pure retention, like I said, this year, it doesn't make sense based on the research to do that, especially on a large scale. Did I answer your question?
Yeah.
Okay. And it's because, and really in any year, the research is pretty clear that retention is not a good solution in most cases. And the research is quite clear that 4 years out, you take students of very similar backgrounds and academic abilities, if one's retained and one is not, 4 years later, they're about in the same place. And there have been study after study that has shown that. So we don't want to retain if that's not what the research suggests.
Even the lower grades too?
Even
like,
in
first,
kindergarten, there's a
second,
little
yeah.
more debate because of developmental level.
Okay.
But even once you get to about second or third grade, it's just, retention in and of itself is not a solution. I'm not saying that there's never a time to do it, but it needs to be extremely rare, because just by retaining, that does not help them, that doesn't necessarily help them 4 years later. We need to close learning gaps, we need to provide extra time, we need to provide extra support. Though children learn faster with those supports, and again, if given the right supports, if given and again, using the federal funds we're talking about, allowing for, teachers in the summer, allowing for more teachers after school, that really can help, because we can continue the interventions that we're doing during the school day.
That extended day will help, especially those kids that need it. That's going to get plus.
Yes, sir. And so far, I'm excited about summer. We actually have quite a bit of student interest. I hope we can maintain that. But there are a lot of parents signing their kids up for summer school. I'm really, really happy about that so far.
Dr. LeBoux, if I may, let me just connect in. The 7.2 is a calendar option adjustment in what we've approved in January. And so that calendar, what we'll reference there is time for teachers. It provides 6 professional development days before we start school, which is, I believe we were starting on the 10th or the 11th. This has us starting school on the 18th. It is still the traditional school year, which means it's at least 170 school days. With that, we were at 175 or 174. Mr. Brock was what we approved on 175. So it moves 5 of those days with students, 2 professional development days for teachers, has several other days sprinkled in, I guess, throughout the rest of the year. One of the things that we did here, I heard loud and clear from our teachers and even parents, that the February break was a positive break, not only for students, but also for employees. And so there is a Thanksgiving-like 3-day break in that third week of February. The school year starts in the middle of the week, which our elementary teachers always ask us to do. It also gets us out before Memorial Day, which we hear a lot from parents, and obviously our high school side gets it through the advanced placement window so we can do finals. So it is 5 days less with students, which is not uncommon. In the past, we've banked time, and with snow, at times we've done 170, 171 days. This year's calendar is 160 days with students, and we had to add 25 minutes to go 400 minutes a day to get to 1,062 instructional hours. This calendar would require 375 minutes, so if you're thinking about this year and your time, start and end time as an employee, that should be 25 minutes less in each building, or thereabouts. Mr. Brock runs the numbers, and there's some passing time, and elementary schools are a little different with the mandated outside recess time in state law.
Are there other questions for Mr. Black from the board?
I might mention one thing about the calendar. We will also be able to offer some targeted professional development for teachers who might need, there may be some teachers who need a few more than just those 6 days. And this would be teachers who might be doing a special project, or teachers who may just be in a situation where they need more time. And we do have the funding in place to be able to do that. And so that would be above the contract. Okay, so it wouldn't be, this would be in addition to what you're seeing there. So just, Dr. Shobley and I spent some time with the calendar with Mr. Brock as well, just trying to figure out how do we make this professional development as efficient as possible, and that was one of the solutions to cut down the total number of days. So hopefully that can provide for a little bit more normal start for the community.
Kind of described on the large scale how the backwards mapping is going to work. How about for the individual kid? So you've got
Great question.
you got a teacher who's really been through the professional development. They're really trying to get going. They're a couple weeks into school. They're really having a hard time getting all this organized for all the kids in their class. And I think Dr. Hudson brought up through a question at our last board meeting, the elementary school teachers may be facing some more challenges than the high school or the middle school because they're managing multiple subjects sometimes as opposed to a single subject area.
That's a great question, and you are correct that it can be overwhelming, especially it can be overwhelming for any teacher, but definitely newer teachers. This is a challenge because, as you said, every student has different gaps, right? In other words, there's no student there are sometimes like maybe 1 or 2 kids that have the exact same gap, but pretty much there's variance. This year, I think you'll see even more variance, is my guess, due to the fact that different kids are in different situations. We weren't all in the school building the whole year. And so the best way to overcome that, we have some very effective teachers right here in the room with us who do this every year, and that is to start with an assessment. And if you can use technology to help you do that, it is a lot more efficient. So we have certain assessments, and we're actually building in maybe one more to even help save time. But it would be to just allow, teachers to figure out where are the gaps, right up front, and then what are the gaps that kids have in common. Okay, so you start looking on each and any given objective, you would have, you might have half the class that hasn't mastered it, or maybe a third of the class, or maybe 25%. It just depends on the particular objective. But what we do in school is try to create processes for teachers to go through. We call it item analysis, where they can sit there and see, okay, these objectives right here, we could teach those, only 20% of kids don't know these objectives, whereas this one, maybe 60% doesn't know it. Well, you treat those problems differently. So with 20%, you can take a small group of kids and maybe fill that gap. Whereas, with 60%, you may have to reteach that concept, or we may have to, again, figure out how do we efficiently catch the whole class up on that. The very best teachers are differentiating their instruction to where this group is working on this skill, this group is working on this skill, this group is working on this skill, and they can manage that, effectively. So again, these tools that we're talking about here can help us, and the coaching can really help, especially if we can give intensive coaching to people who, could benefit by it. And then we can give larger group, support, like through workshops and through professional learning communities to teachers who are off and running with it. So it is a daunting task. And I think that's why this is needed. We just doing what we always do, I'm not sure is gonna be enough to support teachers. We really do need to think through how do we tackle this, particular problem given what we've just been through with the pandemic.
I don't want to wear you out, but I would like to ask one more question,
Sure.
if that's all right with you. We're talking a lot about teachers and providing support to the teachers, but we're going to be advancing students who haven't learned as much potentially in the year before. And so they're going to be entering a thing where they're going to be getting a lot of new content, and they're going to be challenged, and we're going to be telling them that they can do it, and which they can. But they're going to be getting assessed by the same test they've been assessed with before.
Right.
And so they probably are not going to see the same performance on their assessment that they're used to seeing. And how do we deal, I guess we can sort of picture from what you said before, it's going to be a 3-year catch-up process.
Mm-hmm.
But that might not always be how a high school kid or a middle school kid looks at how they're performing at that particular time. So how do we deal kind of with the assessment part for the student and the individual expectations for the students and how they're feeling about their own advancement?
Well, one tool we are looking at right now, and this is pretty new because we didn't know it existed even a month ago, but we're actually looking at some student voice tools that'll help us monitor how kids feel about it, or how kids feel about schools, just in general. And there's some really, this is a company we've already worked with at the Head Start level. And I know Christy Lewis has had a positive experience working with them. And we, this year has been a little crazy, so I'm not sure we've, really been able to utilize it like we would, but we were able to get some really good data from our staff at staff, climate, and culture. So part of what you're talking about, Dr. Levin, is understanding how are kids feeling, and not just about school, but we're going to have kids who've been, have experienced some form of trauma over the past year. It might be related to the pandemic, it might be unrelated, but just being at home or not going through a normal process or normal routine can bring some challenges. So that's one piece is we're looking at how do we get a snapshot of where kids are and if we need to provide extra support. In a larger sense though, our Leader in Me program and some other things that we do, we want to use those to help us really explicitly talk to kids about this, and so setting goals, recognizing that the last year has been crazy and that, some of us have had more, have been able to, we're in different places based on things that are very often outside of our control. So that we're resetting kind of, everybody's starting here, and it's kind of like when if you're new to a cross-country team, you're really looking for personal improvement. You're looking for personal making PRs or personal records so that, you start to get excited about your own personal growth. Maybe you are behind the leaders, or maybe in the race, in cross country, but you're gaining on them every race, right? And you're starting to close that gap. That is inspiring, and I've watched that for years with kids who have fallen behind. Again, the difference is, kids get discouraged every year if they fall behind. So teachers are used to having to inspire and motivate kids. We're going to have to do that on a much larger scale. And so what I'm worried about is if, we need to provide those tools and approaches to teachers, to be able to support kids on a class-wide scale that way, right from the beginning, so that just like you said, that kids don't get, discouraged.
One of the things is, every assessment doesn't have to be summative. Formative doesn't always have to have a grade, but use it to drive instruction, or teachers need to take a time out and regroup because they're seeing, okay, I'm having this problem in my classroom, the same problem over here, and regroup, let it drive instruction, because every assessment does not have to have, and that way kids don't always feel so overwhelmed or feel discouraged.
That's right.
Yeah.
And I think we can say, and there's some teachers in this room, I'm not going to put them on the spot, but who do this every year. They take kids who maybe walk in scoring at the novice level on formative assessments, and they build a map with that child. Look, I've watched teachers have this conversation. Hey, I believe you can close this gap. How would it feel for to be a high apprentice or proficient by the end of the year? Right now you're a novice. How would you like to make it to proficient? And kids, what the answer is every time? That would be awesome. I would love to do that. And it would be, yeah, I want to do that. And so what's really cool now is with some of these tools, we can actually tell a kid, okay, so if you want to be proficient in reading, here's what you have to do each week, okay? And we're going to empower you with this program. McNabb proved that this program actually works and that this approach works. They, in 1 year, went up 23%, proficient distinguished in one grade, and then went up 13%. And that was right before the pandemic. And we were going to do it again in 2020, but unfortunately we couldn't take the test that year. So now we're going to get to use this new approach to help us catch kids up, for COVID or from COVID. And I'm really excited about the weekly part of that, to where you can tell a kid, if you just read 4 of these articles each week, and you make it 80% or more on 4 articles, we can promise you, we can pretty much guarantee you, if you can achieve that each week, that you will grow 2 grade levels in 1. You will double the rate of growth of an average kid. That's amazing that we can do that. It didn't used to be such an exact science where we could predict it, but now we can. So that's the game here, is that we have to use the tools that we have and the knowledge we have and the data systems that we have to build a roadmap for each kid, where the kid can see, if I do this, then this is going to be my result. And because these algorithms are so accurate, you can, within a reasonable estimation, they can make it.
Other questions from the board? We worked you over tonight.
It's okay.
Thanks.
It's exciting. It's important stuff. Exciting.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you. The next item on our agenda is item 4.2. This is Dr. Donald Shively, Superintendent, regarding supplemental school year program.
Good evening, everybody.
Good evening.
Let me get started. This is somewhat opposite of what Will just shared with you. And I want to walk you all through an emergency act that was signed by Governor Beshear, I guess, in early April. But it's called the Supplemental School Year Program, and there's a little bit of background just to make sure everybody's caught up. I know we've talked about this for a couple months now. If you look at the overview, it's just a 3-page bill, but it is an emergency act. The Office of Attorney General's opinion has always been in grades kindergarten through 8th grade, it's a school's decision in the state of Kentucky to make a determination of retention. And so this act is one that is decided upon at the local level, so all 170 different districts, public school districts in the state of Kentucky make their own determination on what to do with this. But it actually offers an additional supplemental school year. And so the first bullet, not to read all that to you, but it offers if you are enrolled in a public school this year, so the 2021 school year, it gives you the opportunity as a parent to opt in to a supplemental school year and then to either retake or supplement, which I think is important, that's the language for the bill, the courses or grades that the student has already taken. So again, retake or supplement. It does offer that in high school, if you've already got a credit in that subject, in the second bullet, you're not allowed to get an additional credit. So if you failed that class, then you can retake that class and get a credit, but you can't get an additional credit towards graduation if you've already passed English 9, for example. When you get into the section 2 on here, it really gets into our seniors in high school, our 12th graders. They're graduating on Friday. And so this part of section 2 allows them a supplemental school year. So they graduate Friday, but they can come back as a full-time student in our districts if you've already satisfied graduation requirements. And so there is a state law that says when you have finished your graduation requirements, you shall graduate. And so for this class, this senior class, 21, they have the opportunity to do that next year. Section 3 is really our timeline. And so it said that we need to have requests by parents submitted to the district by May 1. And then obviously there's a local determination by the board. In the statute, it outlines that as June 1 of 2021, so that's why we're talking about it here tonight, whether the district shall or shall not accept all requests. And so it's one request means all requests. And so it's not just, you can't pick and choose, it is all students or no students. And then also the guidelines from the Kentucky Department of Education has set June 16th for us to complete the district assurances and what our plan will be, that implementation of the local plan. The legislation is very specific to local decision making, and so there's some guidance by the Kentucky Department of Education. I took some time last week and reached out to the author of this bill. It's Senator Max Wise, who represents actually my hometown, and he talked about the importance to be innovative as we possibly could when he wrote the bill, when he was working with the Kentucky Department of Education and also the Kentucky High School Athletic Association. In section 4, it really gets into an athletic piece. If you're a student in 9th or 12th grade this year, you can ask for the supplemental school year and actually have 5 years of eligibility. Currently, in any other year, as soon as you enter 9th grade, you have 4 years of high school athletic eligibility. So for the students that enrolled at the high school at Tillman this year, they have 5. But you also must follow all the Kentucky High School athletic bylaws on eligibility, and one of those that's not going out of effect is the third bullet is on your last year, you can turn 19 on August 1 or any time after August 1 and be eligible to play all athletics all year. If you turn 19 on July 31st or before that, you are ineligible to play athletics that year. And so that does not go away. So there is an age requirement that stays in there for high school students. And most of them are, thinking 5 years, and we have to look at that date of birth for those students. When you look at the requests we received by May 1, Clark had 2 students. This is our elementary schools. McNabb had 5, and Morgan had 6 that supplemented the Microsoft forms for that. When you look at our middle school, we had 19 that have applied for this, and then the bulk of our 113 different applicants are from the high school, and you can see there's a lot of freshmen and actually juniors at Tillman. When you look at kind of analyze this, there's 113 total requests, as I just said. There's 3.8% of our student population if you look at it that way. And one of the things that I shared with you all as we've led up to this is, there's a concern about the capacity of each building and what's that put on each school. And so if you look at Clark, there was 1 5th grader that wanted to do a repeat year. So if this is passed, whatever our enrollment would be next year would be +1. McNabb, 1 5th grader, so whatever that enrollment would be, +1. Morgan had 2 5th graders, and so when you look at that enrollment,
whatever we would be next year, +2. So little to no impact, no full-time equivalencies, changes relative to that at any of those 3 schools. If you look at Paducah Middle School, and you kind of got to think about if we approve this for one, we approve it for all. And so I put it in red. It's really a +2 students, but the numbers are in red. So 6 8th graders are asking not to go to Tillman. Parents or guardians are asking that, but we also have to subtract off the 4 5th graders that would be moving up. And so really it's just a +2 at our middle school, if you look at it that way, for 21, 22. And then at Paducah Tillman, we have 13 12th graders that have asked for the supplemental school year program, and we have 6 8th graders that have asked to stay back. And so 13 minus 6 is +7. So there's not a significant impact on student enrollment in any of those buildings as we look at this. Another part of this, just to make sure we're all clear of the assessment side of this, if you are a junior this year and this is approved and you're a junior next year, you have to take those same assessments, the Kentucky Department of Education's assessments. So you retake the ACT. If you're in 4th grade, you retake the 4th grade assessments. Graduation rate is where it can be negative for us. I have a calculated 4-year graduation rate. And so for only those high school students, that supplemental school year could mean they graduate in 5. And so there is a 5-year graduation requirement. We also look at, I know the Kentucky Department of Education is working with the Federal Department of Education on how to implement that, but that's really not known right now relative to what that would do to us. If you look at that, that's 13 seniors. Actually, it would be the next group, so 81 minus 13 is 68. So 68 different children right now at our high school that could repeat a year that could impact our graduation rate negatively. The SEEK funding formula, which is your average daily attendance, all of these children count towards our average daily attendance. So there is no negative impact on the financial side of this. Another part with this that has come out, and I want to brag on our community a little bit with this, is the Kentucky Higher Education Assistant Authority has stated, that's outside of the Kentucky Department of Education, that if you are a senior and you graduate, the dual credit that the state pays for, or the work-ready dual credit that the state pays for, you're not eligible for. And so what that is, dual credit on that side, is you get 2 classes your junior year, and you get 2 classes your senior year that the state will pay for, that you're dual credited with, so you're taking college classes, the state's paying for that. Work-ready dual credit is for the career and technical education, that's 9th grade through 12th grade, that is paid, again, we're talking about 12th graders, that if you graduate, those that graduate Friday, they would not have these opportunities. But I will say that at the Community Scholarships Board meeting we had earlier this month, Dr. Reese made a commitment that Western Kentucky Community Technical College would help out children if this is approved for extra, if they're able to take college credit next year, their 5th year. And so I'm excited about that opportunity here locally compared to what could be transpiring in other districts across the state. Our next steps, if you approve that, or if you approve this tonight, our administrators, our counselors will formalize our plan, our district implementation plan. We've been discussing this, but there's no reason to have a plan if it's not approved. So we've been having conversations around that, and so we will have a formalized plan on how we implement this. Our principals and counselors will then meet with each child. That is very specific to each child. We have to have an individual plan for each child. On that is we'll go through our district implementation option with each child to make sure they're still wanting to do this. For our elementary and middle school students, the opportunities are probably more limited if you look at it, because the legislation language says retake or supplement. And so in 4th grade, it's really hard to supplement a whole lot of times, but we have fewer kids. Obviously, the higher you go, the more opportunities we have. For our high school students, that's a plan. What's your 4-year plan if you're repeating your freshman year? What's your 3-year plan? What's your 2-year plan? Or what's next year's plan if you've already graduated, relative to maximizing your opportunities while in Paducah Public Schools. Again, that legislation says to retake or supplement. And so I think that has an opportunity at our high school because there's so many more choices at Paducah Tillman High School than you have at the elementary or middle school. Also, we will discuss with our students, especially those in high school, the impacts of any NCAA bylaws on any prospective college athletes. And so not only we're dealing with our state legislation and graduation requirements. We're also dealing with how this impacts students from the Kentucky Higher Education Association Authority. And we also have these NCAA bylaws that we have to make sure that if you're a child that has that vision to be an NCAA Division I athlete, that we have to make sure that you're in good standing with that. And so ultimately that vision that I have for this would be to work with our parents or guardians to maximize all the opportunities that we have to best customize their educational plan going forward. And so that's a quick overview. We've discussed this for a while, but I'll pause and ask if there's questions or thoughts. Yes, sir.
Can you put back the section 2 of your presentation?
Section 2.4, is it?
Yeah, 2.4.
Yes.
Did you say a student graduates can already with a GPA, and when he comes back, is the GPA going to change?
No, and very specifically
So-
for the seniors that are graduating Friday, no, their GPA would not change.
So there's no point coming back.
There are, I think that can be debated. What I think some families are looking at are, my child missed a part of a whole of a year, and I would like to have them have that experience again. There's also opportunities to take college credit, potentially that 5th year, while still participating in Paducah Tillman High School and any of the activities we offer. And I also think that for some students, it's an additional plan. Their grades might not need to be where they should be for a NCAA Division I. There's a sliding scale on your GPA and your ACT, and if your grades have fallen, your ACT might need to be a little bit higher. But you would have the opportunity to focus in on the ACT to bring that up this year with the courses that we would put you in. Is how I would see that. So I think there's different models for each kid. But yes, your GPA is locked in for these seniors.
Are there other questions from the board? Dr. Shively? And we have to offer it for every grade level. So we couldn't exclude those seniors. We have to offer that. If we're going to
Yes,
offer
sir.
it for 7th grade, 6th grade, 1st grade, kindergarten, that option has to stay in place for those students that would graduate on Friday as well.
Yes, sir. So kindergarten children
Right.
that have signed up get that option.
Yeah.
I think it's 13. I think it's 3 kindergarten students and 13 seniors
Yeah.
on those ends of the spectrum.
Any other questions from the board? Great. Thank you.
Thank you.
The next item on our agenda is item 5.1. This is an opportunity for oral communications from the audience regarding items which are included on tonight's agenda. If there's anyone here in the audience that would like to speak on an item that's already included on our agenda, now is the time to do so. Hearing none, we'll move on to item 5.2. This is an opportunity for oral communications from the audience regarding items which are not listed on tonight's agenda. Yes, ma'am. It'd be best if you could come forward, excuse me, and maybe step.
There's a microphone. What about the other? You have a choice on mics. Is that one on?
It's your phone, just press the button to click. You just hit triggering. There you go.
And if you could tell us your name also.
Or you can.
Stand up here, it doesn't matter.
I think you can, right there would be great, yeah, that'd be fine.
Good evening, school board members. Thank you for giving me this opportunity to speak tonight. My name is Chiffon Winston. I am the KEA president for our classified staff members. I sent a letter of concern about our classified staff in an email to you guys, and I just wanted to know when we will hear from you.
So this is before our last meeting, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Dr. Shively, would you like to address that?
No, this is after the last meeting. I sent it April. but it was after the board meeting.
That was specific to rate of pay for
Classified and then.
for summer, correct?
No,
No, not for summer. I'm
No.
sorry. Do you mind refreshing me on that email? I apologize.
it was a letter. I sent a letter to the board in, beginning of May, end of April, about, pay for classified staff members. And the other concern was, classified, instructional assistants were subbing in classrooms full-time with no pay. I forgot the other thing I put in the letter. But those two are majority of the things. I sent it to the Board of Education, that email.
Was it the email Paducah Board?
Yes.
email? Okay. I don't get to read those, but I'll share with you that in the consent agenda approval is a $40 for summer employment for certified and 20 for classified. So that should have made the consent agenda. If not, we'll get that done. I'm confident it's there. And then, not to steal Ms. Copeland's thunder, there is in our, I believe it's 7.6, the tentative budget, there is a 2% raise in our tentative budget for next year. It's not in the salary scale yet, but it's been figured in for certified and classified going forward. And so I will check into the subbing. I know we've been short subs all year, so.
Yeah, the classified, the paras were concerned that they were, actually subbing for, people that were out for maybe maternity leave or whatever. And, I know when it's been addressed, it's always the other duties assigned. So, usually it's not being addressed. They have been working more than 20 days, maybe 2 and 3 weeks, covering for classrooms as a certified teacher when they're not certified.
So I'm not sure we're all talking about exactly all the same thing, so, but I would like to set up a meeting with you and Dr. Shively and one other board member maybe sometime in the next week. And so we can make sure we've gone over all the things that you mentioned in your email.
Okay, that'd be great.
Is that okay? Did you have anything else?
Oh, that was all.
Okay, all right, no problem. This is still oral communications from the audience regarding items which are not included on tonight's agenda.
Good evening.
Good evening.
I actually expected to have some type of podium, that's why I have all these papers. So I'm going to have to hide in some kind of way. But good evening, Dr. Balloon,
Good evening.
and other members of the board, Dr. Shively, Mr. Black. Thank you for this opportunity to speak. There's a lot of things, sometimes people say I'm all over the place with issues, but that's because you all give me so many issues that I need to deal with, that we need to deal with. And you know how much I care about the system, and I know that we're all in this together. We might have different ideas about how to do things, but I'm going to give you some things that I think need to be expressed, and some things that if you don't know, you need to know. So my first concern is going to be with the, well, first of all, I want to congratulate all the seniors that graduated in the 2021 class. That was a fantastic, over $9 million being given away. Next year, with not a pandemic, we're going to have a lot more. I always tell you, I expect so much from this system, and this system has a lot to live up to because we're not doing all that we can do. We have the resources, we have the students, we have everything. So I don't know why we are not the school system that everybody comes to see how to close the gap. Because the pandemic, yes, we had problems with the pandemic, with the gap, but we were having problems with closing the gap before the pandemic. So we got to come up with a workable solution as far as getting our students where they need to be. I think that's something that we all have in common. My first issue tonight is the next principal of Paducah Middle School. We are greatly concerned, the NAACP, we're writing a letter, and I will read the letter to you that we're writing, and I know that the SBDM is the hiring machine for the principal, but there are some things I think that you need to have in a principal. and you are the overseers of the whole system, so I just think there are some things that you need to be aware of. First of all, I almost said amen about 3 times when Will was speaking, when he talked about the novice. I think we need to have a concentration on bringing our students who are novice up to the apprentice and up to the proficient and to the distinguished. And I know we're spending a lot of time and a lot of money on proficient and distinguished. We got to do better than that. Our students deserve more than that. I heard Will say about trauma. Yes, our kids have been traumatized. Kids of color probably even more. Probably with economics and the systemic racism that we live in, they have. You couldn't get on to watch television without seeing somebody's knee on a neck. So yes, our kids have been traumatized in a whole bunch of ways. Wrote some of the things, inspiring. We got to have a leader at Paducah Middle School who is an inspirer. Somebody who's going to inspire our students, inspire our staff, inspire our parents, inspire our community. So please look for someone who's inspiring, somebody that doesn't come with baggage, someone that doesn't have, how do I say it, racial behavior actions in the past. And if you want to know more about it, you can read some of the board minutes. Who keeps the minutes? Okay, then the board minutes, if you'll go back and then talk with me later, I'll tell you exactly when to go because the issue has been addressed earlier. And sometimes we keep on hiring people and we keep on doing things and we say we don't know. Well, I don't want you to be able to say you don't know because if you want to know, I'm here to tell you. So that's something. We need a person who has worked with diversity, who knows about diversity, somebody who's been proven to work with students of diversity. I believe our population of Paducah Middle School is 57% students of color. I think with socioeconomics, it goes even higher. We need somebody who has a proven record of working with students of diversity. That's a must. We need an instructional leader. We need somebody that, I said, concentrates not just on the proficient and the top of the gifted. We need somebody who's down there struggling with all of them. I heard him say crazy. Yeah, sometimes it's crazy. Okay, that was the first issue. The second issue is that equity director. It's a great position, and it's one that's vastly needed. It's one that we should have gotten years ago. It's one, and I don't know why, because we can create all kinds of positions. We created positions at Paducah Middle School. We can create any kind of position we want. We should have created an equity position a long time ago. My charge to you, my request, is that you are the overseers of that position. Dr. Shively should not be in charge of overseeing somebody who might be investigating him. And when I said that, I'm not saying anything other than who knows if there's going to be another picture or another what kind of anything. So I don't know how you go about doing it. I know that there is a way to do it. So if you all will find a way of being the body that oversees evaluates, that's the word I want to use. You evaluate the equity director, because I don't think that a person in his position should be doing it. Dr. Shively he's lost a lot of credibility. And to be honest with it, and he's got to regain it, and he can't do it. I mean, he shouldn't even want to do this. I think that's not even fair to let him be over to be the one to evaluate the equity director. I think there's already a rope. I see a rope and I see threads breaking and the tension on the rope. We don't need the rope to completely break. We could disconnect
like you have a question mark, Dr. LeBlanc, and that's because when I say the trust, it's got to get better. It's not there. And whether you like it or not, it's the truth. It's not there. The letter that's going out to the SBDM, and I'm aware that SBDM is the people at Paducah Middle School, the SBDM committee. I believe it's still 2 parents and 3 teachers, is that correct? What role does Dr. Childish have in? Is there a role with the superintendent? I believe I heard last that you can reject someone that they give, is that correct? And maybe this is inappropriate for me to ask.
No, ma'am. It was under 2 conditions, and that's in any employment. If you've been removed with cause from that position, that's in law for the superintendent to reject, or if there is something in a criminal background check that comes back after the position's been hired that you didn't notify us on the front end in the application process, that would be a reason to terminate that. Those are the only 2 things in law. Nicholas, is there anything that I'm forgetting?
That's what I can think of.
Do you have a vote?
Under the system, me or my designee has a vote, yes ma'am, relative to. There is a alternate process that is new within the last 2 years where the superintendent would, if so chooses by the council, the superintendent would interview, make a selection, put it towards the council. They would interview privately and then either accept or reject. Our council has already decided to do the traditional where the superintendent or designee has 1/6 of the vote. So there's 5 people on the council, the superintendent has, or designee has 1/6.
I would ask you to recuse yourself from being a part of the vote of the next principal. The rumors in the community, in the hood, or wherever you want to, it's already that the person has already pretty much been put in place, that everything has happened. Now, I don't want to believe it, so please recuse yourself so that you don't have any involvement in it. Because for transparency and for things to keep going on, you can't. You can't have your hand in on what's already been perceived. I will read the letter. And this letter will go to the SBDM committee, but I wanted you all to hear it first. To the Paducah Middle School SBDM, the local NAACP has been informed of a principal vacancy at Paducah Middle School. Our school district has suffered greatly in the last year. Our students have experienced a pandemic, academic loss, and the negative media attention surrounding the blackface incident with Superintendent Dr. Donald Shively, all of which have negatively impacted students. The NAACP takes interest in the choosing of the next Paducah Middle School principal. We hope whomever is chosen, that careful consideration will be given and that they are a well-rounded leader with proven experience and fair leadership. The NAACP encourages you to evaluate all applicants based on the following criteria: proven leadership experience with diverse populations, strong instructional leadership, professionalism, commitment to equity, and commitment to community relations. Select principal whose leadership will ultimately grow the faculty and the staff to new levels. A candidate who is concerned with the success of all students. Select a candidate that possesses these qualities, and education will inevitably go up. Select the candidate that will be committed to equitable education, seeing that every student receives a fair chance at the educational opportunities that so many students of color are overlooked for. The impact that this next principal will have will be dynamic. We hope that the principal chosen will be the right one that is highly respected in the community as an instructional leader for all children. We are certain that you have the best interest for our students in this selection process. We encourage you through your principal selection, and we are available to assist during this process. Thank you, Paducah McCracken County NAACP, J.W. Cleary, President. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Mrs. Hurd. Are there any, this remains an opportunity for oral communications from the audience regarding items which are not included on tonight's agenda. Is there anyone else in the audience who would like to comment on items that are not included on tonight's agenda? Okay, hearing none, we'll move on to the consent agenda, item 6.0. Is there a motion to approve item 6.0 consent agenda?
I'll make a motion we approve item 6.0 consent agenda.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
There's a motion and a second. Are there any questions from the board?
Question. The letter that she brought up, doesn't it fall on the consent agenda? She said something regarding a letter regarding pay. Is that what?
Are you referring to Ms. Winston? The, just say, I believe it's 617 pay schedule?
No, that's the date, 6/20.
Yes.
That's the one-time allocation. And then the tentative budget is 7.6.
No.
No.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I see.
No, 619 is the one-time appropriation. And then the
Sorry,
budget.
618 is the summer acceleration pay.
That's, yeah.
That's we had previously last month, would have been classified plus $5 on the different rates. And so, and listening to requests from our union and then also talking with Ms. Copeland, we moved that to $20 flat rate for the summer COVID part of that. So summer school wages, that's not if other things in July, if it's just normal school.
So am I correct to say that 6.18 is not what she was talking about? Because the letter, I want to make sure that we're not voting on something that we haven't discussed. And if this is this part of it? You tell me it's not.
I believe the letter went to the board email account, and I'm not so sure that
I checked it right before I came because Lisa reminds me to check the email to see if anybody would like to speak. And I printed it off my computer and I didn't even read it. I just printed it off to bring tonight and I left it on my printer downstairs. And I forgot to pick it up before I left. So I'm sorry, that's my fault.
But I had, after the last board meeting, I followed up with Ms. Winston and also Ms. Morris, and I think I shared with you that we would move that to $20 an hour, maybe last week. Again, I stopped by last week with that relative to that concern. And she had, let me just make sure I find the notes. That's one that had been shared with me.
I'm not sure what all she was referring to. That's why I wanted to make sure I met with her to make sure that what she was, and I understand what you're saying, that we're not voting on something that...
You know, I would vote yes, but I'm just concerned that we're just overlooking what the concern was because I have not seen the letter. So I don't know. If it's not connected to this, then that's fine. But if a letter is saying even summer pay or whatever, then...
No, what I was asked for specifically, and Ms. Morris, tell me if I'm wrong, but it was $20. I think we had done half at one point a long time ago from certified to classified. And so we moved that up. So it would have been 18, 17, 19 for classified, 16, somewhere, you know, it just depends on the job.
So there has been an increase?
Yes, there has been an increase. And so I followed up with you guys and thought that was clear that we heard that and we get it approved this month to take it forward into the June session. Sorry for the confusion.
No, that's good.
And then I think that I will bring it back to you if there's something, I mean, I'd like one other board member and I to meet with her to make sure we've addressed, I wanted to make sure, I wasn't sure what all she was talking about when she brought that up. So I want to make sure we meet with her and we've at least looked into what her requests were also.
We'll get that scheduled.
Are there other questions from the board regarding item 6.0 consent agenda? Call the roll, please.
Dr. Koji?
Yes.
Ms. Hancock?
Yes.
Ms. Howard?
Yes.
Dr. Hudson?
Yes.
Dr. Levine?
Yes. Item 7.1. This is an amendment to board policy, second reading. The superintendent recommends that the Paducah Board of Education receive for second reading and approve the amendment to board policy 0.1.1 to include information about the student board member representative. Is there a motion to approve item 7.1?
I make a motion to approve item 7.1.
Is there a second?
Second.
Are there any questions from the board? Call the roll, please.
Dr. Koji?
Yes.
Ms. Hancock?
Yes.
Ms. Howard?
Yes.
Dr. Hudson?
Yes.
Dr. Levine?
Yes. Item 7.2, revised 2021-2022 school calendar. The superintendent recommends that the Paducah Board of Education approve the 2021-2022 school calendar as submitted by Troy Brock, Director of Pupil Personnel. This calendar is a revision from the previous approval on December 21st, 2020. This calendar includes 187 contract days and 170 instructional days. Each school will be required to provide a minimum of 375 instructional minutes to meet the 1,062 hours required by statute. Is there a motion to approve the revised 2021-2022 calendar?
I make a motion to approve item 7.2, revised school calendar.
Second.
21.
There's a motion and a second. Are there any questions from the board? Call the roll, please.
Dr. Koji?
Yes.
Ms. Hancock?
Yes.
Ms. Howard?
Yes.
Dr. Hudson?
Yes.
Dr. Levine?
Yes. Item 7.3, insurance 2021-2022. The superintendent recommends that the board approve the following insurance packages. Liberty Mutual Insurance for $451,507 to cover property, fleet, liability, and other insurances, and KEMI for $94,368 for workers' compensation insurance. Is there a motion to approve item 7.3?
I'll make a motion, we approve item 7.3.
A second.
There's a motion and a second. Are there any questions from the board? Call the roll, please.
Dr. Koji?
Yes.
Ms. Hancock?
Yes.
Ms. Howard?
Yes.
Dr. Hudson?
Yes.
Dr. Levine?
Yes. Item 7.4, supplemental school year program. The superintendent recommends that the Paducah Board of Education approve the supplemental school year program for the students that requested the opportunity formally by May 1st, 2021. This emergency legislation created by Senate Bill 128 allows any K through 12 student enrolled during the 2020-2021 school year to use the 2021-2022 school year as a supplemental year to retake or supplement courses the student has already taken. Is there a motion to approve the supplemental school year program?
I make a motion, we approve item 7.4.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
There's a motion and a second. We had a presentation on this earlier. Are there any other questions from the board regarding the supplemental school year program? Call the roll, please.
Dr. Koji?
Yes.
Ms. Hancock?
Yes.
Ms. Howard?
Yes.
Dr. Hudson?
Yes.
Dr. Levine?
Yes. Item 7.5, Esser2 Plan. The superintendent recommends that the Paducah Board of Education approve the Esser2 Plan as presented by Will Black, Assistant Superintendent. And there's, on December 27th, 2020, a second elementary and secondary school emergency relief fund appropriation was authorized by the enactment of the Consolidated Appropriations Act of 2021. That act includes the Coronavirus Response and Relief Supplemental Appropriations. The Esser2 spending plan contains Paducah Independent School District's plan for using these funds to support student and staff as they respond to the effects of the COVID-19 pandemic. Is there a motion to approve item 7.5, Esser2 Plan?
Make a motion, we approve item 7.5, Esser2 Plan.
I second.
There was also a presentation from this earlier, on this earlier. Are there any questions from the board?
I have one question, Will. Is there any wiggle room, like once this is approved, within each little section? Or no, is it set in stone?
For the plan?
Just for the dollars.
Yes, we can revise it,
Uh-huh.
as we need, as we need to. We have to follow, there are guidelines that we have to follow. I believe it's 85% has to go toward, is it 80 or 85, sorry?
That part, there is a federal list of things that we can spend this on. And then the Kentucky Department of Education took some of their set-aside ESSER money and said if you spend it on these codes, which are all direct student services, 85% of that, then they will give you extra money for your ADA this year. And so Ms. Copeland, Mr. Black, and I sit down. I think we got all of the
We got
4.9 million,
Yeah.
100% directly at student services. And so we anticipate receiving, I think it's $5 a child maybe, or maybe it's 15, whatever it was. I remember it was $155,000 we expect to receive from the Kentucky Department of Education towards that. So it is flexible, I think was the question. But,
We as things change, because again, right now, we continue to kind of make progress with the pandemic. So assuming that continues, this plan would probably stay more or less the same. But let's say something changes, we can always revise it. Or if our needs change, maybe certain things, you never know how something might work or not work. Maybe we have to adjust. But
and not to complicate it more, but the ESSER3 monies we've been given our allocation. I don't know that have you seen a funding matrix on that yet? We've just been told 20% of that has to be spent directly on extended school year, whether that's after school or in the summer. And so there's definitely a lot of flexibility in that relative to, I think there's an emphasis on, and you all, I think, had finance training, but anticipated emphasis on additional upgrades for facilities for health and wellness, air quality specifically.
Okay, since Esser2 has flexibility, have you guys kind of outlined what you want, where those funds will be spent?
yes. And so what I was describing,
That right there?
yes,
Okay.
it is the basis of that plan. And there are some, so essentially that is the plan. The budget, what we're actually submitting is mostly a budget. They actually don't require a lot of verbiage, which is good. It's a simple application. But what I presented to you is what we want to do with it, basically. What it helps finance.
Are there any other questions from the board regarding item 7.5? Call the roll, please.
Dr. Koji?
Yes.
Ms. Hancock?
Yes.
Ms. Howard?
Yes.
Dr. Hudson?
Yes.
Dr. Leboon?
Yes. Item 7.6, tentative budget. The superintendent recommends that the Paducah Board of Education approve the tentative budget for 2021-2022 and authorize the administration to forward such budget document to the Kentucky Department of Education. And that tentative budget is included under separate cover. Is there a motion to approve item 7.6?
I make a motion to approve item 7.6, tentative budget.
Is there a second?
I second.
There's a motion and a second. Are there any comments from the superintendent or questions from the board?
Ms. Copeland, do you want to talk about it? Okay. Just re-emphasizing, we've been working on this since January when we put in the draft budget. It will, before you all in June, hopefully if not July, will be a salary schedule that will have a 2% increase on certified and classified allocations across. I think it will include supplements, but it will include all staff across the district. So it is a 2% raise for next school year.
Any other major highlights in the budget, Ms. Copeland, that you'd like to point out, or there may not be? I'm just offering the opportunity.
No, we were able to do this because we had some projects last year that we paid out of the general fund, and so this was a good time to be able to give a raise. I will say that Head Start is one that they're not getting the full 2% because They got a federal allocation this year to get 1.25%, so they'll get the remaining 0.75% coming up, so.
Okay.
In one of those projects, I think the major project was the Safety Security Act that we had to do as far as entryways that we should be closing out next month. So that money, we didn't get that from the state to do that project, and so that was local tax dollars that did that. So we're shifting that towards our employees.
Any other questions from the board? Comments? Call the roll, please.
Dr. Koji?
Yes.
Ms. Hancock?
Yes.
Ms. Howard?
Yes.
Dr. Hudson?
Yes.
Dr. Levine?
Yes. Item 7.7, change order number 6. The superintendent recommends that the Paducah Board of Education approve change order number 6 for the art building renovation project, parentheses, multi-purpose athletic facility. This change order will increase the project $4,351.79. This change order includes PR number 11 to replace the remaining wainscoting in the weight room with new FRP panels for $3,516.98. Per PCO number 19 for 2 new door frames at new locker room, minor door hardware adjustments, and 1 new toilet and bath accessory for $834.81. Is there a motion to approve change order number 6?
I make a motion, we approve item 7.7.
There's a motion. Is there a second?
I'll second.
There's a motion and a second. Are there any questions from the board? Call the roll, please.
Dr. Koji?
Yes.
Ms. Hancock?
Yes.
Ms. Howard?
Yes.
Dr. Hudson?
Yes.
Dr. Levine?
Yes. Item 7.8, payments to contractors, BG 20-166. The superintendent recommends that the Paducah Board of Education approve the following payments to contractors for the art building renovation project, multipurpose athletic facility, and listed there is a payment of $91,675.09 to Ray Black & Sons. There's some direct purchase orders listed as well for Cape Electric, Ferguson Enterprises, and to Bacon Farmer Workman. Is there a motion to approve item 7.6?
I make a motion.
Excuse me, 7.8. My mistake. There's a motion from Dr. Hudson to approve 7.8. Is there a second?
Approve, sorry, a second.
All right. There's a motion and a second. Are there any questions from the board? Call the roll, please.
Dr. Koji?
Yes.
Ms. Hancock?
Yes.
Ms. Howard?
Yes.
Dr. Hudson?
Yes.
Dr. Levine?
Yes. Item 7.9, revised BG1, BG 17-179. The superintendent recommends that the Paducah Board of Education approve the revised BG1 for the Paducah Innovation Hub to add $40,000 to the project contingency to cover incurred and possible future incidental costs resulting from the construction completion date on the general contract for construction. There was nearly $40,000 in funds unused from complete direct purchase orders that will be coming back to the project at the submission of the BG5 for project closeout, as well as $6,000 left in the contingency currently. These funds will balance out by the end of the project pending any unforeseen conditions. Is there a motion to approve the revised BG1?
I'll make a motion we approve item 7.9.
A second.
There's a motion and a second. Are there any questions from the board or comments from the superintendent?
In the direct purchase, the DPOs that we do, that we save 6% sales tax, so we're buying steel, we're buying, the trees that we're planting, the flowers, etc. And so that has built up over time. We have had some delays due to weather. We had some delays due to the way we reworked our parking lot out front and the engineering side of that. And so this in no way increases the overall project cost. It's just what the Kentucky Department of Education is asking us to do, to release those funds right now that we will get back as soon as we go through the BG5 process. And so it's just their process of how we do this. But again, we're not increasing the cost of this building.
Are there any questions from the board? Hearing none, call the roll, please.
Dr. Koji?
Yes.
Ms. Hancock?
Yes.
Ms. Howard?
Yes.
Dr. Hudson?
Yes.
Dr. Levine?
Yes. Item 7.1, change order BG 17-179. The superintendent recommends the Paducah Board of Education approve the change order number 29 for the Paducah Innovation Hub project. This change order will cover RBSI's project management hours resulting from the contract time extension due to inclement weather. The cost change will be $19,144.87 and will add 20 days to the contract with substantial completion pushed to June 11th of 2021. Is there a motion to approve item 7.1?
I make a motion we approve item 7.10, change order.
Yeah, I always say 7.1 and it's always 7.10. I do that every, I'll figure it out sometime in the next couple of years, I hope. So there's a motion to approve item 7.10. Is there a second?
I'll second.
There's a motion and a second. Are there any questions from the board? Call the roll, please.
Dr. Koji?
Yes.
Ms. Hancock?
Yes.
Ms. Howard?
Yes.
Dr. Hudson?
Yes.
Dr. Levin?
Yes. You know how in hotels they don't have a room that has a 13 in it? I think maybe for our budget we ought to go 7.9 to 7.11 and just leave out just leave out the .10. Then I won't make that mistake every month.
Me and I don't agree with 13 too.
So, next item is item 7.11, payments to contractors, BG 17-179. The superintendent recommends that the Paducah Board of Education approve the payments to contractors for the Innovation Hub, BG 17-179. There's a pay application number 30 to Ray Black & Sons for $166,613.72. And there's direct payment to vendors listed for Keystone Hardscapes, Jake Shelby Enterprises, and Performance Commission Agency with those item numbers listed. Is there a motion to approve item 7.11?
I make a motion we approve item 7.11.
Is there a second?
Second.
Are there any questions from the board? Call the roll, please.
Dr. Koji?
Yes.
Ms. Hancock?
Yes.
Ms. Howard?
Yes.
Dr. Hudson?
Yes.
Dr. Levin?
Yes. Item 7.12, new position. The superintendent recommends that the Paducah Board of Education approve the new position and job description of Makerspace Student Technician. Is there a motion to approve item 7.12?
I make a motion we approve item 7.12.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
There's a motion and a second. Dr. Shively, you want to make any comments about that
Just
position?
super excited to have our high school students that are going to be helping not only teach but also mentor our younger students in our summer camps that will be going on, the extensions that we have throughout the summer, which is Monday through Thursday, each week across the summer. So excited for that. And some other pieces that are coming in the makerspace with our adult children. We're working on a board policy to let them rent the space because they are becoming quite entrepreneurs. And so that will be before you coming up.
And these are
How many students are we talking about?
Will you have the specifics on?
I don't, I think it may change over time, but it would be a handful to begin with, probably 3 to 5, but with hopes to expand it. And Mr. Franklin is rapidly scaling the capacity of the makerspace. So I'm hoping that, the plan is to certainly include more.
Are there any questions from the board? Call the roll, please.
Dr. Koji?
Yes.
Ms. Hancock?
Yes.
Ms. Howard?
Yes.
Dr. Hudson?
Yes.
Dr. Levin?
Yes. I believe we have need to go into executive session regarding personnel, property, and potential litigation. Is there a motion from the board for us to go into executive session?
I so move.
There's a motion from Dr. Okoji. Is there a second?
Second.
Second from Dr. Hudson. Are there any questions or further comments from the board? Call the roll, please.
Dr. Koji?
Yes.
Ms. Hancock?
Yes.
Ms. Howard?
Yes.
Dr. Hudson?
Yes.
Dr. Levin?
Yes. Thank you for coming, everybody.